Hey everyone, I am TheChosenOneLegend here, as always joined by my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kai, also known as Fascurreyn.
And once again joined by our graphic designer.
Hello.
And welcome back to BunchaJokahs. Sam is back, and we are back to do another Pokémon video. Now you may have seen our last one we did to celebrate the upcoming Legends Arceus, which is no longer upcoming because it literally is released the day that we're recording this, so happy Arceus Day everyone, or Arceus Day, however you fancy saying it. But in that video, we created our own unique concepts for Hisuian forms, and Sam brought them to life with concept art, as he has talents that Kai and I definitely do not have. And yeah, that was a lot of fun, and it seemed to be quite well received, so we wanted to do another one. However, obviously, with the game being out now, there's no much point creating the concepts of Pokemon for that game. So we decided to create our own, conceptually. What if there was to be another Legends game, focusing on a different region, or regions, in the past? And what would the new forms of starters look like for that region? That's what this video is about. We have each come up with a classic starter, or a previous starter, and given it a new form that Sam has brought to life for this hypothetical new region and new Legends game. And it was a lot of fun. How did you guys find just creating these concepts for new starters in general?
Yeah, it's good. It's really interesting to sort of build upon these characters, like the Hisuian starters have and all that. Overall, it's pretty fun to think about what the possibilities are, because I was thinking up quite a few for all these different types of starters.
Yeah, we had a bit more of a focus this time, because whereas before we could pretty much pick any of the 900 Pokemon to get Hisuian form, now we had a specific set of starters to pick from, and we had to mix and match one of each type, of course. And that provided a new challenge.
Yeah.
It made Sam's life easier, that's for sure. And in fact, Sam, do you want to talk us through a little bit about what our concept is for this new region, what it would be, so that we can give you guys a bit of context before we show off the starters?
So from our very brief, midnight for me, discussion, we've sort of come to the conclusion that these starters would appear in a region, two regions, in a former game set quite a few years back in the past, being Kalos and Galar. So, Galar? Yes.
Not biased at all by two Brits being in here. Yeah.
So essentially, from there, we outlawed those starters from those regions. And then we also came to the conclusion that we wouldn't pick any that featured in the Hisui region. From there, we all sort of picked a type, and then we all picked a generation, and then that led us with our Pokemon of choice. So from there, we picked our secondary typings, and now we are here. So essentially, this sort of narrative is based during the Kalos War, which is theory to be against Galar. So essentially, in the story, you'll get to pick which side you go toward. And today we'll be showing off the starters the final forms of the starters that you receive. So similar to Arceus, how there's Hisuian versions of the starters. I'm hesitant to say spoiler there because everyone's been speculating that since day one.
Yeah.
But that's essentially what we've come to, and we've all come up with pretty unique out there concepts for what we wanted to do, and I've tied them all together in a little neat bow.
Yeah, I should mention that Kai and I have not seen these designs yet either, so as well as sort of being the reveal to you guys, it's the reveal to us two as well, so you'll get our reactions on whatever Sam has made up. He did warn us that he's done some interesting things, so I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about that, but I'm looking forward to it either way.
Yeah.
We shall see.
Saying, I don't know if I've done them dirty, if I've done them good. I'm scared myself, to be honest with you all.
If you need to, just say, it's just Renaissance aesthetic. Just call
exactly.
it
that. I could not call it that.
But yeah.
it is something else entirely. But if we want to start with Matt's choice, being grass types according to Pokédex, I will let Matt give the brief that was given to me.
Right. So I ended up with grass types literally by being the last one left, because I didn't really have a preference, to be honest with you. I don't have the massive Pokemon knowledge to like have a favourite type and stuff, so I'm happy to go with the flow. And so I looked through these grass types, and honestly I wasn't a huge fan of a lot of the designs. None of them really gelled with me, but I really liked Serperior. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. Is it Serperior?
Yeah, you're good.
You're doing
Okay,
good.
we're safe. We're good here. Didn't insult anyone. Yeah, so that's what I picked with, just because I really liked the design. I liked the sort of regality of it, and this ended up fitting perfectly. This was unintentional, but with the region we picked, because when I looked on Bulbapedia, and I sort of looked through some of the information about Serperior, I found out that it's partly inspired by European royalty. So, us doing about Galar and Kalos, which are of course inspired by England and France, it was literally the perfect fit, which fell into place. I could claim it was intentionally, but I would be lying. And to match with this sort of idea of royalty and that sort of type of setting in this era of in the past we were going for, I decided that the second type, as well as grass, should be fairy, just because that sort of makes you think of sort of regality and refinement in a way. That sort of that would match with the design. Other than that, though, I didn't really have any ideas for any extra tips, so that was all over to Sam to see what he made of that and how it would fit into this new region. Or regions. So Sam, what did you do with this?
I made a monster. Nah. I took what was given to me and I sort of took it in a different direction to I think what we would have expected. I leaned more towards the fairy path, and in terms of like the royalness behind it, it's royalness, is that a word? Yeah, whatever.
It is now.
Regalness.
Yeah, regalness. That fits.
It's more of it's like the sort of ruler of a kingdom that you see in a movie that's really laid back and you would probably guess is high.
Oh god.
So with
that is an interesting approach.
Yeah. So with that, I shall share my creation to
Here we go.
Matt and Kai. So this right here.
Oh damn.
Ooh.
Matt and Kai are looking at a almost finished version of it. It's missing its shading and the stuff that makes it pop. But essentially, this Pokemon here, it's tied to some of the themes that I've kept consistent throughout. Being the different roles within the sort of hierarchy of kingdoms. And past, present, and future. This one is set on the present of the game at the time, so it's actually the past, but we'll ignore that. And also the ruler sort of position, as opposed to some of the other ones that I've drawn up. So here we've got the ruler that sort of services all of the other, I guess we'll say Snivy in this situation, by it growing berries along its body. It also sort of has this draping leaves sort of throughout the whole design, where that was sort of just inspired by Superior's main form, where it's got these, I want to say collar. I'm not entirely sure what to call it because, well, this thing doesn't even have arms when its previous evolution does. So that was inspired from that and the leaves throughout. And it's more of a gentle sort of fighter as opposed to a brute force, which we've got for another pick that Kai has done. Which
Interesting.
it made more sense for. I also wanted to do something more of like the opposite to what Superior currently is. So we sort of know like Snivy from the anime to be very not posh but very snobby, and just looking at Superior's official art, it just looks unimpressed constantly. So
I relate.
essentially, I wanted to do the opposite of that and make it a little more humble and just happy in general. This is sort of what I've come up with.
I love the idea of sort of that, making it like a, I guess, benevolent ruler of sorts. And the way that, the idea of having berries that come off it as well, that sort of fits with that perfectly. And, it really fits with the sort of the fairy aesthetic, I suppose, as well. So that's a really interesting take on it. I definitely like what you've done there.
Yeah, this colour scheme reminds me of Carnivine quite a lot, actually. Just like the way it looks.
That is true. It's more of a pastel version with the obviously it's pink in this situation, but Carnivine's got like the red and dark greens throughout it.
And the texture's almost there though.
Yeah.
Which is pretty clean, I can imagine, them two getting along.
Very good first one.
That's what I came up with for this one.
Very nice.
Makes sense for it being a fairy type though, good stuff. We've only had one fairy type starter so far in Prime Arena, who isn't very liked. So
look, I think the grass starters get a bit more flack than they deserve. We need some love for the grass, not in like a weed way. You get what I mean?
We do need to love grass more. Come
we
on, guys.
do.
Think of the environment.
Gotta take care of the planet.
There you go, good stuff.
Oh god.
I love it. What's the next one, Sam? Who are we going with next?
Alright, next one. We'll go with Kai's pick.
Okay, so, with all of the other options out of the way and like what I could choose from, I had quite a few picks. I wasn't sure to basically one thing is that we chose the Pokemon before we decided on the region. And I was thinking, I had the fire type. I took the fire type in the end, and I was thinking, damn, I like the fire type starters. They're pretty good. I mean, aside from the whole firefighting fiasco that plagued multiple generations.
You haven't done it again, have you, Kai?
Especially, no, trust me, I did make the joke, but yeah, no. But especially, a lot of the more recent designs for fire types, I really like Cinderace. I think Delphox is a really interesting, witch type thing. I was thinking, damn, that could really work well in an older time thing. But in the end, I settled on Incineroar.
Because
Incineroar
Kai is a
is
fairy.
probably Incineroar. It's just a Pokemon. It is, honestly, I think it's probably one of the most popular recent starters, alongside, like Greninja.
I mean, it made it into
Smash,
Smash.
Smash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the prime example, and I thought, sure, why not, we'll bring it back. It doesn't hurt. And in Alola, in Gen 7, Incineroar is kind of like a wrestler type, he's sort of wrestling on the big stage. I've always associated it with the like Battle Royale mode that you've got in Gen 7, the 4-player event. And
with
it kind of always has that wrestler
Royale.
vibe. Yeah, that's it.
Definitely not Professor Kukui.
But I thought if we're going back in time a bit, especially going back to this time, then perhaps it should, take a different approach and maybe repurpose itself while having the same general idea. So I thought, well, what about like a knight or something? And hence I gave Sam the typing of Fire Steel. I like using unique typings, and Fire Steel is one that's only currently used by Heatran from Gen 4. So I thought, why not? Let's give it to a non-legendary. I do like Fire Steel as a typing. Steel is one of my favourite types. So, I gave that to Sam. We talked a tiny bit about the idea of it being a knight of sorts and, its colour scheme. but I'm still in the dark about what its actual form looks like and the actual lore behind it. So let's have a look.
Alright,
here we go.
So, in terms of the themes of this one, so this one is sort of set past/present, depending on how you want to look at it. This one's probably more present to the time, and then the superior one is more past. Again, up to interpretation. This is more of the, well, obviously night, as Kai has said several times, in terms of position. And this is more of your typical brute, as opposed to like loyalty and all that, as opposed to the peacefulness or harsh approaches. So essentially I came up with this design based on what Kai sort of gravitated towards, being the more almost humanoid animal starters, being Delphox and, well, Incineroar's already sort of on that level, but also Cinderace. And I added some bits and pieces to it and almost sort of tried to almost make it look like it was a, I guess, contained version of Incineroar, where they had to sort of restrict it from its power to do what it has to.
Oh.
So I came up with this, where it does sort of follow a similar color scheme.
Right.
Ooh.
But this
Oh no,
is...
he's hot!
Oh no! Don't say that.
The fire Pokemon. Fire Pokemon, Kai. Come on. Come on, Kai.
Sure.
Oh god.
What are we gonna do with them?
Oh my god.
So yeah, I came up with this. I took a bit of inspiration from Adam from Torn of the Golden Country, Xenoblade, with the little cape on the shoulder. And then we've also got so the fire belt. That's where the sort of contained part sort of came into it, where its normal wrestling belt that it's got has been contained in these sort of gems here. It still sort of leaks out a bit around it, but then you've also got the armored shoulder pads, quads, that's the one I was thinking of, and also the headpiece, which I also extended to cover bit of its fur. I guess I'm not a cat person, so I don't know what the exact term would be for the fur that surrounds its ears. So that way, because it also doesn't have any sort of protection around its neck, so if a sword was to try and get to that point, the shield would sort of be at there. Some other sort of noticeable things that I did to it were I made the claws on it, well, the feet now have claws in general, so if you were to get kicked by it, good luck. There are claws on its hands, but if you notice in the little quick demonstration, or not demonstration, speed art, you'll see me trying to draw the hand and then me write "why me?" ? So fists it was. And I also tried to do a bit of camouflaging bits to it. So like you'll see on its forearms, there's the darker patches on the inside of the arms. Essentially, so like if it was nighttime and you were to look at this Pokemon, it would look a lot less intimidating because the arms look severely smaller, along with the shoulder pads decreasing the sort of width and broadness of the shoulders. And yeah, and the eyes glow like that monster from Alice in Wonderland that I still have nightmares about.
The Cheshire Cat?
The Cheshire Cat.
That one.
Alright, so we have
ammo for Sam now.
Cheshire Cat here. I think that's good though. I think I can imagine this almost sort of having a bit of comic relief element to it. in parts of the game with what you've described in the lore there, while also still being, you know, sort of an imposing presence. So it's a pretty good balance you've got going on there.
Yeah, so
I think
the way I sort of
I love the way you blended it
is,
perfectly. Like,
I wanted to keep
go on,
a
Sam.
lot of what I wanted to keep a lot of what Incineroar already is, because it's already a very well liked Pokemon and people gravitate towards it and like its personality. So I didn't want to take the bits away from it that sort of made it what it is, and more so made this like the grandfather version to what present day Incineroar is, if that makes any sense.
yeah, I like.
Yeah. I'm seeing the Adam vibes quite strongly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the way that you've incorporated this still element, it doesn't. You could go too far one way and it looks like it's just an Incineroar wearing armor, or you could go too far the other way and it doesn't stand out. But you've got that sort of perfect balance where it blends in and looks natural, but it has that distinction where it has that armor aesthetic at the same time. So I think you've sort of got the right balance there, which is very important to it. So I really like how it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, I sort of struggled in terms of where to define the armor and how, like, do I give it the whole sleeve? Do I give it a bit less to make it a little speedier so it's not slowed down? Do I want to do things like give it less armor but strategically place what is there so that way it has that speed to it, but then it also can be flexible in terms of its movement, as opposed to when you search armor on Google, you just basically get a tin can. So I needed to do something with the torso where, like, if he was to bend forward, the plates would sort of fold into place to allow that to happen. And then by not giving it these big sleeves and pants, it just eliminates that completely. And well, you've got the fire belt that's going to shoot flames at you, and it's got some pretty big arms, so if you get hit by those, you're probably not going to stand much of a chance anyways. So yeah,
very well done, which means we've only got one left.
Yes, so my baby, who I'm looking at it now, and so essentially I already chose before I let Matt and Kai did. I manipulated the situation to make sure I had the one that I wanted. I wanted Empoleon and I got Empoleon. So I decided to go with a water ghost type. Now, the sort of themes for this one were, this one's more future based, and the design is, it clearly shows that it is not a typical living being. Yeah.
The pause is worrying.
I can't help but laugh because I feel like I've designed something really bad, but I also do really like it. So I guess we're about to find out.
Rip off the band-aid, Sam. Send it over.
What I tried to do was come up with something a little different, as opposed to just making it look dead.
Yeah.
Oh god.
And this one was sort of supposed to be the one that's clearly more hung up on the battle even after it's died.
Ooh.
So it's got a bit
I was
of...
about to say it doesn't look human, but
yeah,
it doesn't look alive. But I guess
So-
it makes sense.
yeah.
Ghost.
So essentially, this sort of... The way I went with this was... Alright, well, it's a ghost, so it needs to be dead, unfortunately. And I also couldn't come up with a design for a penguin that was significant enough for difference to want me to call it a regional form. So essentially I just started cutting off bits and pieces of its body. But I did link it back together with the electrical elements that are there. I wanted to keep a lot of what it was, so it's like an Empoleon that has just passed on. And this is what I came up with. So, yeah.
That is suitably terrifying, that's for sure. But, I mean, like you say...
Is that electric?
No, it's Water Ghost, but the reason I sort of chose
No, I mean as in, like, the design.
Oh, yeah, so those are electrical elements there, and the reason why I sort of wanted to choose that was to give it so it would have died by electricity of some sort.
Right.
And
lovely.
its ability would include something to make it either immune or resistant to electric types, given that it is a water type.
Makes
so
sense.
that's sort of where that thinking came from.
Wonder how that would work competitively, actually.
Yeah. You
It
see, I
definitely
don't
looks
think
very
competitive.
otherworldly.
I just think aesthetic, and that's it. But looking at all three of them, you can see past, present, future, peaceful, loyal, and hung up on the battle still. And I feel like they are distinct enough, but also not too far out from each other to sort of... They're all sort of like warriors in their own aspect that fight within a war. Similar to how in Breath of the Wild you've got the champions who obviously all look distinctly different because they come from all sorts of races of people. But yeah, so that is my poor child.
Your poor child that you've killed by electrocution.
Yeah, one of them gets to be a ruler, one of them gets some nice armor. You die. You just die. Get electrocuted.
Yeah.
It really is medieval times. There we go.
I feel like it's
like you say,
It reminds me of like totems almost. Like there might be
Yeah.
a weird one, but like a totem stand of sorts, which is pretty neat. Like it does look very lifeless, which of course fits exactly what you want to be going for there.
Yeah, it really has that otherworldly look to it, and like you say, they're all completely different in their designs, but that's what makes it interesting, and that's what makes Pokemon in general interesting, is how you mix it up and you have these completely different takes. So yeah. I love all these designs. That was a good job, Sam. You get extra Kit Kats this month. Extra Kit Kats. But yeah, very interesting stuff there. Does anyone else have any sort of final thoughts on any of the designs or concepts that they want to mention here before we end things off?
If you have thought of this, Sam, although this might be a bit of an odd one, have you like thought about how these three Pokemon may interact with each other? Because sometimes there's trailers where three of the starters interact with each other and things like that.
I do sort of have I kind of wanted to do a piece of art where all three of them are on there sort of interacting, but I got lazy. So essentially,
I mean, you've done more than enough work.
Yeah.
Essentially, the way I see it, they'd all sort of come into more of their original forms when it comes to interacting with each other, where Superior becomes a bit of a snob, like I'm above you all sort of vibes, but only is nicer to its own people. Incineroar is the one that's trying to goof around and make everyone laugh, and then Empoleon is pretty emotionless and like, I am who I am, please leave me alone. That's the way I see it happening, where it's like you have an introvert, extrovert, and a extroverted introvert all in one room, not knowing what to do.
Sounds brilliant.
I would love to see, I'd love to see how these would work in like the anime, how these would be animated and interact. Yeah, that would be really interesting to see how they end up getting that. So I love those designs. But that does bring us to the end of the video. That is it. However, we would like to do more about this sort of joint region that we've come up with. So if you like this, please do say so, because we're definitely interested in expanding this idea further and creating more Pokemon designs, maybe for legendaries or just other Pokemon that could appear in the region in general. Maybe even like locations and stuff, you know? So if you have ideas, please send them our way, because this is definitely something we'd like to expand in the future. But until then, Kai, where can people find you at?
Twitch.tv/Fascurreyn. I am doing voice of cards still at the moment.
Yeah. Indeed. Sam, where can people find you at?
You can find my Twitter, which is @offbrandSam. I'll be posting the Pokemon forms themselves and a little bit more about them as time goes on, similar to what I did with the Hisuian forms that we did. And more than happy to answer questions about why I did all three of these guys dirty.
Oh yeah. So there'll be links to both of those in the description below if you want to check anything out there. But until then, we will see you guys in the next video. You can find us here on BunchaJokahs on YouTube, or audio-only versions of the podcast on Spotify and other podcasting sites. So stay tuned for that, and we will see you guys in the next video. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.